Hi everyone and welcome to part 4 of the audio tutorial series on Eurofly 3. In the last part we started talking about how to manually explore the world map and how to find out all the information about where we currently are and what's around us. But in this next part we'll finally start talking about how to actually get around, how to move on the map, because obviously we don't want to stand still in the same spot, but we want to travel around the world. So how to do that?
Profile World Map Exploration.
I'm going to open World Map Exploration again.
Eurofly 3 window. Stare Mesto.
We're back in
Bratislava.
In the Old Town part where we left off last time. And I can start moving around here. And we can do that in basically two different ways. Either we can start by moving directly as though we were tracing our finger along the map, or we can jump directly to the point of our interest. Let's start with the first part, which would be analogous to moving our finger along the map. That's essentially very simple in Eurofly 3 as long as we become familiar with several basic principles that are in effect. There are several ways of moving around the map, and they're represented by various modes of movement, which we can cycle around with the F1 key.
3D map, constant azimuth. Mouse. 2D map coordinates. 2D map distance. 3D map, constant azimuth.
So as you can see, this wraps around, and with Shift F1 we can wrap around in the same way, but backwards.
3D map, constant azimuth. 2D map distance. 2D map coordinates. Mouse.
So let's get started with the two first ones. There were two modes of moving on a 2D map and one mode for a 3D map. So what's the difference? The 2D map. Imagine that as though you had an actual map on a sheet of paper laying flat, say on a table, on a surface. Just like as though you had opened an atlas and were looking at that and tracing your finger along it. This principle means that the map has its end or its boundary at the top, at the bottom, on the left and on the right. It does end somewhere. It doesn't keep wrapping around or going on and on. It's finite. Just like if you reach the edge of the map, which is lying on a table, you just end up touching the table after that, and you're no longer touching the map. In these two modes of moving along a 2D map, it's always true that the up arrow key moves us to the north or up, the down arrow key always moves us to the south or down, left is always left or west, and right is always right or east. On the contrary, the 3D mode doesn't work as though you had the map laid out flat on a table in front of you, but instead as though it was laid out on an actual tactile globe. You know that you can trace the globe with your finger in all directions to any point. You can keep moving your finger up or down or left or right, and it never ends anywhere. So if you've reached, say, the North Pole in the 3D mode, the program wouldn't stop you there, but it would let you wrap around it, so to speak, and to keep moving. So that's why it's important to realize that in the 3D mode, pressing the up arrow key doesn't always necessarily mean moving to the north, and pressing the down arrow key doesn't always necessarily mean moving to the south. But pressing the up arrow key is always simply just moving or taking a step ahead, depending on which direction we currently have it set to. Let's also talk about one more difference. You've noticed that there are two of the 2D movement modes. One of them is called coordinates, and the other one refers to distance. And this means the measurement unit with which you take a step. When we're about to move along the map using the arrow keys, it's obviously important to know how big each step or each press of the arrow key is going to be. If we have it set to the movement mode by distance, then one press of an arrow key will always make a step in the given direction either by several meters or by several kilometers. So we could, for example, jump around by 100 kilometers on each key press. But if we have it set to coordinates, we'll be traveling around using actual GPS coordinates. These coordinates are always represented with decimal numbers, where the integer or the part before the floating point always refers to one whole meridian or parallel in the given direction, and the part after the floating point refers to the tenths or hundredths or thousandths of a meridian or parallel. Eurofly supports coordinates with up to 3 decimal places, which means that we can move along the map using coordinates of tenths or hundredths or up to the thousandths of a parallel or meridian being the smallest possible measurement unit. What does it mean in practice? We're currently located in Bratislava, in the capital of Slovakia. I press K and it says
48.125.
48.125. We can set the step size with the backspace key
0.001.
and that's currently set to 0.001. So if I now press the up arrow key, I'll be at coordinates 48.126. If I press it again, I'll be at coordinates 48.127.
48.127.
I'll press it 3 more times and it should be 48.130.
48.130.
Now I'll set a different step size.
0.010.
0.010, so 10,000ths of a meridian or parallel per step. And I'll press the down arrow 3 times. We've reached
Austria.
Austria in the meantime, but I should now be at the coordinates 48.100.
48.100.
I'll set a different step size again.
0.100.
0.100, and I'll press the down arrow key once. We're still in Austria, and this time we should be exactly at the 48th parallel, 48.000.
48.000.
I'll change the step size one more time, this time to
1.000.
1.0. And if I now press the up arrow key once, I'll be exactly at the 49th parallel at 49.000. We've reached the Czech Republic in the meantime.
49.000.
Which means that between the 48th and the 49th parallel, there's not even a bit of Slovakia there. But let's take a step to the right instead.
Slovakia.
And we've reached Slovakia. You can hear that a sound plays while we move, which indicates the borders of a country, so that we've moved from country to country, and we are told that we're in Slovakia.
Slovakia.
We can set what part of the location information we want to have announced. If you remember, in the last part we were talking about the keys 1 to 7, which correspond to the individual levels of 1 through 7 that the location information consists of. And we can choose either one of these levels to be announced. So if I now press Control 2 on the numbers row, for instance,
Level 2.
It says level 2, meaning that it will now announce only if the level 2 of our location changes as we move. Meaning in this case, if we get into a different country. In this case, it would ignore the names of any regions, districts, cities, etc. And it will only announce if the country changes. At level 3, it would announce the districts, or rather anything that's included in the location information at level 3, but not anything else that's below that level. Or if we press Control 0,
lowest level,
it will always announce the lowest level as we move. meaning really every single tiniest city or village. I'll set a small step size again.
0.001.
The smallest possible, in fact, of 0.001. And I'll keep going to the east, to the right.
Bolsov.
So you see that the step is really small with this setting.
0.010.
Communicate. Slovenia.
So I'm really moving by very small steps, by hundredths of a GPS coordinate. And it does really read all the...
Pomenovek, Ilava, Koska. Najdrovas. Velika Kozek Podridi, Najdrovas.
all the towns and villages that I'm moving over. But this can really be annoying in some cases, and that's why you can switch the level that you want to have announced. So this is how we can move along the map using coordinates. In this mode, you can only move in straight lines, so no diagonal directions. So that means we can only move straight north, or straight east, or straight south, or straight west. But let's switch to the second mode now.
2D map distance.
Which is 2D map distance. And this works practically in the same way. We can also set the step size here. But in this mode, we are not moving using like the tenths or hundredths of GPS coordinates, but we can move by 10 meters,
100 m,
100 meters,
500 m,
500 meters,
1 kilometer,
1 kilometer,
10 kilometers,
10 kilometers,
100 kilometers,
100,
1000 kilometers,
or 1000 kilometers. So let's set it to 100 kilometers, for example,
100 kilometers,
and take a step to the left, meaning to the west.
Krumber.
And we're back in the Czech Republic again.
Czech Republic, Jihomoravský Kraj.
In the South Moravian region, now
Palovis. Lhenis. Mitterberg.
we've jumped to
Germany,
Germany.
Irlahul. Engelhardsweiler. Stein. Zucht.
France,
Now we're in France,
Rembercourt Zermatt.
and so on. Let's set it to
1000 kilometers,
1000 kilometers now and take a step to the left.
Celtic Sea.
And we are in the Celtic Sea. In this mode, we can already use even the sub-cardinal directions. So it doesn't always have to be only straight north, only straight east, straight south, or straight west. And we do that by changing the direction of the view that I was talking about in the previous part. So we are now facing
west,
due west. So let's change it to
north, 10, 20, 30, 40, northeast,
45 degrees, which would be northeast. And now if I want to take a step to the northeast, I will not do that using the arrow keys, because these always take a step only in a cardinal direction, meaning north, east, south, or west. So if I want to take a step in the actual direction of the view that I have set just now, I use the space bar for that. The space bar always takes one step ahead, using the set unit and using the current direction of the view that we have just set.
North Sea.
So one step to the northeast now took us to the North Sea. We heard a special sound, another sound cue in this case, which is telling us that we've just crossed the zero meridian. The same sound also plays for when we cross parallel zero. So this is another piece of information that's indicated to us. And of course, we can now look around us in whichever direction that we want, and we can change the direction of the view in the same way that I demonstrated in the previous part. So we are currently facing northeast. So let's turn due north again.
north,
And let's take a look at what's in front of us.
Norwegian Sea 629 kilometers,
Ahead of us, there's the Norwegian Sea.
Europe UK, England 269
On
kilometers,
our left, there's Europe.
Europe Denmark 366 kilometers,
There's Europe, Denmark on our right. So we are now in a situation where we are facing north, and we are in the
North Sea,
North Sea. And if I now wanted to take a step to the left, meaning to the west, for instance, the result would be different if I wanted to also change my view to the west as I take the step. or if I want to keep moving to the west, but also to keep looking north at the same time as I move left. Eurofly allows us to synchronize the direction of the movement with the direction of the view. We've also touched this briefly in the part 2 of the tutorial that was talking about settings. This feature is toggled on or off with Control Shift F2.
Synchronization on.
And we now heard synchronization on. So notice that if I'm now facing north, but take a step to the left, let's change the step size to
100 kilometers.
Say 100 kilometers and take a step to the left.
North Atlantic Ocean.
But we are now looking
West.
West because we took a step to the west, to the left, and our direction of movement and of the view are now synchronized. That means that we are moving to the west and looking to the west. However, now I'm going to change my view to the north again.
North.
And turn off the synchronization.
Synchronization off.
And now if I take another step to the left or to the west, still using 100 kilometers as the step size, we're still in the
North Atlantic Ocean.
North Atlantic Ocean, but this time we're still
North.
Looking to the north. So I can still keep moving east or west along the map.
North.
But still keep looking
north
to see if I move west, how the terrain changes and what's in front of me to the north. So yeah, I'm in an ocean.
541 kilometers, Iceland Sea, 6 hours, 0 minutes.
But there's Iceland 541 kilometers ahead of me. So I'll still keep moving to the left, to the west.
580 kilometers, Iceland Sea, 6 hours,
still,
26 minutes. North.
But still keep looking to the north. There's still Iceland to the north.
508 kilometers, Europe. 508 kilometers, Europe, Iceland, 5 hours. 552 kilometers, Europe, 519 kilometers, Greenland Sea, 5 hours, 45.
But now we've passed Iceland, it's no longer there, and there's the Greenland Sea now to our north. Now let's switch to the next movement mode.
3D map, constant azimuth.
Which is 3D map, constant azimuth. And this works just like the previous one did, with the only difference being that if I now take a step forward with the up arrow key, it's always going to be in the direction of my view. We can find that out with the S key.
North.
It's north, which means that if I now take a step forward, it's going to be to the north. We're still looking north. So in this mode, the key factor is not which arrow key I pressed, but in which direction I'm looking. And it's always going to move me in relation to that. So if I press the up arrow key, it's going to take me one step in the direction of the view. The down arrow key will take me one step backwards, away from the direction of the view. The left arrow key will take me left of the view, and the right arrow key will take me to the right of the view. So if I now move to the north,
Greenland Sea,
by 100 kilometers each time,
1,000 kilometers.
I can also increase the step size.
North Greenland Sea.
What happened is that I've reached Greenland.
Arctic Ocean.
Now I'm in the Arctic Ocean.
88.715.
My latitude is already 88, and if I now press the up arrow key,
79.732. South.
South Pacific Ocean.
We've heard the special sound again that indicates that we've crossed the meridian 0, and if I take a look at my latitude now, it's now
79.732.
79.732, meaning that I've moved past the North Pole and I've wrapped around
south,
and I'm now moving south. So we keep moving along the Earth, but now up arrow key is taking us south. So that would essentially allow us to keep exploring the Earth and wrapping around the poles as much and as long as we would like to, but still going in the same direction. Well, that's been the 3D map movement mode. And the next mode, that I personally think is actually perhaps the most interesting one, I can't really properly demonstrate myself because I don't currently have a working mouse connected, but I can at least talk about it as much as possible. Well, if you do have a mouse connected, this mode would allow you to actually use that, and by moving it along the surface of your table, actually follow or feel around the map. So I believe that this would be as close to actually physically tracing your finger around a tactile map as we can possibly ever get in a software program. As you move the mouse, your cursor moves along the map. Depending on whether you have the synchronization of the movement and view cursors enabled or disabled, your view may also change or it may not. And it also respects the location change announcements if you have them set to a specified level with control plus the numbers in the numbers row, as I was saying before. If your mouse has a mouse wheel, which I believe most of them should these days, you can change the measure of the map by turning the wheel. In other words, change the level of detail or accuracy or the mouse sensitivity or the zoom, the map zoom, by turning the wheel. If you turn the wheel up or forward, you increase the zoom, meaning that it would then require a smaller movement of the mouse on the surface of your table. Or in other words, if you performed a large move, you would also traverse more distance. Vice versa, if you turn the mouse wheel down or backwards, you decrease the map zoom, meaning that the mouse sensitivity would increase and it would take a larger movement of the mouse to traverse a larger distance. Also, if you press the right mouse button, your entire location information, basically equal to the lowest level, to the 0 key on the numbers row, would be announced anytime. In this way, we've essentially described and covered all the map movement modes that Eurofly 3 has that involve moving along the map directly. But now, let's spend a little more time talking about these modes that let you move directly to your desired point of interest by searching for it or jumping to it directly. The first of these are the keys F5 through F11 that we were talking about the last time. So, for example, let's press Ctrl F7 for the capital cities.
Combo box.
It gives us the capitals ordered by distance from our current location.
South Antarctica MC Meadow State, South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands Grytviken, Falkland Islands Stanley, French Southern and Antarctic Territory, Uruguay Montevideo, 5,074 kilometers 300.
Let's find Poland, Warsaw by typing. And if we now press enter,
Eurofly 3 window.
We're there. It's important to mention that with these lists and everywhere where there's a lot of information, we can make use of the filter feature. I'll press Ctrl F7 again.
Combo box.
And if I now press Tab,
filter edit blank.
We've reached the filter edit field. Let's say that I would like to take a trip to Berlin. So instead of having to tediously look for it using the arrow keys, I can just type BERL here into the filter.
Combo box Germany Berlin, 519 kilometers 277 degrees to the northwest, 5 hours 45 minutes, collapsed.
And there's Berlin right away when I've pressed Tab another time, so we can just press enter on that.
Eurofly 3 window.
And we are in Berlin. In the same way, I could jump to, let's say, an island. Let's press Ctrl F11.
Combo box Greece Corfu, 1,520 kilometers 158 degrees to the southeast, 16 hours 53 minutes, collapsed. Eurofly 3 window, Greece Corfu.
And we're there. In this way, we could jump anywhere else. Another way to move is using the coordinates, and we can do that by pressing the F key.
39.602, 19.912 dialog. Edit 39.602, 19.912.
We are now in an edit field where our current coordinates are already filled in. Within each coordinate, we always separate the integer number from the decimal points with period. Even if in some countries you use the actual decimal point for that separator, in other countries you use comma for that. Here it's always period. So here we have the latitude of
3, 39.602.
602. It did use the period to separate the 39 from the
602.
0.602, but we separate the latitude from the longitude,
comma,
with the actual literal comma. So the current coordinates in the field are 39 period
602,
602,
comma,
comma, and now comes the longitude
19
period
912.
912. So, for example, I'm now going to type in 10 period 100, comma, 10 period 100.
Eurofly 3 window.
And we are
Nigeria.
in Nigeria. We'll take a look at the K and L keys.
10.100. 10.100.
And it says 10.100, 10.100 for both. So it's exactly the coordinates that I've just entered. Now we can take a look around. We can see how big Nigeria is at this current point. It's
1,085 kilometers Benin Cameroon 12.
1,085 kilometers by
691 kilometers.
691 kilometers. We did that with the H and V keys that we talked about in the previous part. The cutout is
6062.
6062, so that we are in the upper right part of Nigeria, but still relatively close to the center in both directions. And the last way is using Control F, which is your normal search box.
Enter the search term dialog. Edit blank.
We can type anything we want here. So let's do, for example, New York.
New York. Eurofly 3 window. Combo box Europe, England, New York collapsed.
Yeah, there's also a New York in England, by the way, which I had known before, but it may be a surprise to some of you.
North America, Iowa, New York. North America, Jamaica, New York. North America, Kentucky, New York. North America, New York.
There's actually a whole lot of New Yorks, even in North America itself. But let's press enter on the one that we all know, I hope.
Eurofly 3 window.
And we are
North America, USA, New York.
in the USA, New York. We could have ended this part here in New York, but I can't let you go without mentioning one more last thing that is not related exactly to movement, but rather to the information that you can get while moving. And it's the audio indication for capital cities, important locations, and the height above the sea level. You can toggle them with the keystrokes Alt-C for capital cities, Alt-B for important locations, and Alt-semicolon for the height above sea level. Because if you remember that, semicolon on its own would read out your current height above the sea level. So if I now press Alt-C
on
for capitals, Alt-B
on
for important points. So I've now moved into the Czech Republic, into Prague, which is the capital.
Europe, Czech Republic, Praha, Hlavné Mesto, Praha, Praha.
I just read out the entire location information so that I wouldn't have to go through every single level. And you can do that with the Q key, by the way. So we are now hearing the music for the Czech Republic as well as the sound, which which indicates the capital city. There's a beeping off to our left.
Ruzany.
And we've now reached it, which marks the important point.
Pavlov.
Now it's moved to our right.
Ruzany.
So
Praha, Czech Republic. Hlavné Ruzany, blank, Ruzany.
So the Ruzyně is actually where the main Prague airport is located. So that's why it's indicating both the capital city as well as the important location here. We can also here, let's turn off the capital city indication
off
and the important point indication
off.
And we are now only hearing one continuous tone, which frankly speaking could be quite annoying. That's why we can turn it down a little bit in the volume mixer.
Volume settings dialog. Map mute 11, 7.
me turn down the music a bit as well.
Map sound, cities and height above sea level comp 99.
And height above sea
98.
level
78. 69. 63. 60.
Let's turn it down to
Cities, map sound, map music combo
60.
7, 6, 5. Eurofly 3.
And this indicates how high the terrain at this location is above the sea level. If we press semicolon,
361.
we are told that we are currently 361 meters above sea level. But let's do a search for China,
Eurofly.
for instance.
Enter the search. Eurofly 3 window. Combo box Africa, Mozambique, Africa, Nigeria, Africa, Asia, India, China. Asia, China. Eurofly 3 window.
And you can hear this continuous tone that is playing is much higher because the current height above the sea level is now
2,964.
2,964 meters here in China. The terrain here obviously has many more mountains.
Kaiseljar.
If I moved to the north, it's even higher.
4,111.
4,111.
KYZYK. Ak Josha. Ak KYZ. Ak Oyama. Babik.
As I keep going north, it decreases and increases in pitch slightly.
Karatayub. Makmal. Chetbulak. Kara Suu. Chetbulak. Makmal. Babik. Oyama.
Now I'm going back south.
Karatat. Josh. Akbo. KYZ. Kaisel. Ulagkat. Kaiseljar.
4,111.
KYZ. Akboga. Josha. Karatat. Oyama. Babik. Oyama.
3,800.
Babik. Karatai. Makmal. Chetbulak. Kara Suu.
So you can actually literally hear how high above the sea the terrain is at the current location. Okay, so this concludes part 4 of the tutorial, where we finally did some actual movement along the map, but to your pleasure or displeasure, which of course depends on whether you are or are not into geography. We're not entirely done with the map yet. There's going to be one more tutorial where I'll still be talking about the map, where I will show you even more features related to map exploration and to moving on the map and receiving more useful information about the map that did not make it into these last 2 parts. So see you soon in part 5, where we'll be exploring the additional features of the map exploration mode.